All right, guys, welcome to the studio. As Gnarly Dave officially called it, Adventure Taco Studios. But speaking of taco, we've got Mike from TacoMoto here, and I don't know what are we going to talk about today.
I'm excited to be here to break in your taco studio. I like the look of it. I'm impressed. This is a professional, legit operation. This is like you've pulled it out.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll be probably talking about motos today, as you guys guessed it. So we were all the way in from Nevada.
Yeah, Vegas. We're up in Carlsbad this weekend doing just a little beach hangout trip, and this came together really well.
Yeah, so it's been really interesting. I mean, watching, like, we were literally just talking about this over the breakfast burritos. Thank you for the breakfast burritos, by the way.
Taco Mike for bringing in the Mexican food.
Set it up. I don't know where you found that sauce was spicy, and I am used to some spicy stuff, but that stuff was legit. So we're talking about it. We're breaking bread, and it was really interesting. The first kind of things that came up was kind of the story about TacoMoto and how it kind of got started. And you mentioned something that, like, it was inspiring at the moment. Is that, like, you just see something and you just ran with it all the way. What's the origin story?
TacoMoto is 5 years old. We're in our fifth year right now, and it started as a side hustle. So it began, well, I guess it began when I was 14 or 15, and I got my first dirt bike, and then it absolutely unlocked. So I was a BMX kid and rode and did some like very amateur racing, BMX racing, and then a BMX in my day in the 80s. I'm an 80s kid, so I was born in 71. To put some context to like my generation. So in the 70s and 80s, BMX was big. And then that was freedom for me and all my pals. And we rode and sort of terrorized the neighborhood. And in Vegas, in the desert, we had little tracks and homemade pump tracks. And the BMX world was my world. And then I discovered dirt bikes. I think I was 14 or 15. And then I traded a set of snow skis, which skiing didn't really interest me all that much, and traded it for an old Husqvarna two-stroke. I don't even remember what model it was, but it was like a shed find.
Mm-hmm.
And then rebuilt that bike as a teenager, and then rode it. And then I remember trading that for another bike and had an XR 400, and just throughout my teenage years had dirt bikes, and then got into a career path. And you know how you do, sometimes you get away from those childhood hobbies and interests. And I sort of got away from dirt biking for a while, but in my late 20s, got back into it. And all through my 30s was very into it, and up to this very day. And while I had all those bikes, was very into modifying and changing and enhancing. And that's sort of it's the quick aside, the lineage of my family, they are horse people. So my great grandpa and his people, they're from Delaware, and they did chariot horse racing. So it's where you take a racehorse, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, it's kind of an unusual thing, but you take a racehorse and you put on the back of it a chariot. Mm-hmm. You link it to the horse, and then the rider sits in this buggy thing, stands up.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. And then that thing goes around the track. Well, it's dangerous and fast and crazy. And my great grandpa, he had patents and had invented different types of harness arrangements and mechanical connections to the horse, and then did improvements to his buggies. And he had a couple of world records in that type of racing.
Interesting.
Well, I didn't grow up in a horse family. By the time I came along, my dad was a radar engineer for the Air Force, and then for RCA later when he got out. And then so he was an engineer, and I grew up with a dad and in a house where experimentation was encouraged. And like I was fearless because it was sort of bred into me to take a thing apart and understand it, and try to figure out ways to improve it and change it. And so I started doing that to dirt bikes. And then because I have that DNA inside of me of like, do a thing and do it really at a high level and do it fast, like make it as fast as possible,
mm-hmm.
And optimize it as much as possible. That's just kind of what I was doing at dirt bikes on my own as a hobby. And then I had a career in construction for about 20 something years, doing electrical work. I ran a electrical subcontractor company in Las Vegas, and then that sort of played itself out. And then this little side hustle of dirt biking that I had really became, I guess, I thought, well, what if I turn this little side hustle into the main thing? What would that look like? And that's where TacoMoto was born. And then here we are. So fast forward today, 5 years, it's been an amazing experience. And then maybe to go back to what you had brought up by asked that question, like this is something that we get asked sometimes, is like, how did TacoMoto burst on the scene so fully realized? I've had people comment that, sometimes a business is a garage business and then it grows and there's this 5-year, 10-year, 15-year arc of that business until it becomes a little bit mainstream or maybe well known or widely understood. And it's been commented to me many times, we sort of just showed up and it's like we hit the ground running and then we've been running at full speed ever since. How did that all come about? And my answer to that was desire, and then asking people to help me with my desire. So I had the desire to, be in the motorcycle business and to really do it at the highest level. I wanted to start out in 6th gear. Obviously, we went through the gears to get to 6, but like I wanted to be up to 6 as fast as possible. And that came about because, or that growth, or that getting to that point, because I asked people in the industry for their help. I went to players, I identified people and businesses that I knew, that I respected, that I admired, and it was understood to me that they understood what they were doing. And I asked them, I approached them and explained my desire and let them in on my goals and objectives. And to a person, every single one, everybody that I've ever reached out to in the industry has responded back, not only like positively, but I've had feedback of owners of other businesses, well-known brands, say things like, that's the energy that we had, that I had when I started, back in the day doing whatever, XYZ. And so they recognized in us that commonality of desire and the hustle.
Yeah.
And so we were just the beneficiary of a lot of generosity. There are people in this business who have been so kind and so generous to us. And that's been like this force multiplier. It's really been this accelerator to everything we're doing. And the more we put into it, the more people see that, and then they respond back with the same level of generosity and energy. And I have chosen to just take that same generosity and then just to be that generous back to the community. And I feel like TacoMoto was established and grew out of kindness and the generosity of people in the industry. And so I want to be a leader and then really lead out with reaping that energy back in the industry with sponsorships and parts and help and support. And so I think we've been doing that.
Yeah. Well, and then that's a really valid point. So, from 50,000 feet and back is my first exposure to TacoMoto and my was the reviews and the knowledge. I mean, you're really active in social media. You're really active on information getting out there. And this is something, we were just talking about in the garage. It's like this industry, it's the moto industry and it's the moto family. And it's as big as it is, it's very small. And a lot of people, especially at certain levels, like everybody knows everybody. So there's a little bit of gatekeeping that goes on. But one of the first things that I noticed in my first exposure to TacoMoto was just the information. And it was from a technical side of things. It wasn't, this is the best fuel pump because it's purple. This is the best fuel pump because it's blue and I buy it. And I've never had any, no, you torture test things, you put things through this. So, that's been very like, and my question in that is where, like, when you decided to start doing videos or reviews and product, like, what was the found? Like, what does it look like? All right, I've got a product that I, want to bring out. All right, I'm going to put the fire to this thing. What does that look like for you? Like the fuel pump, talk about the fuel pump development.
A couple of elements there. We'll do fuel pump last. So to address some of the earlier parts of that question, why do we have an online presence I put a lot of effort and energy into cultivating online community and then doing our YouTube channel and then making it technical specific. I'm happy to editorialize and I have opinions.
Mm-hmm.
I like things or don't like things based on, my own personal preferences, but I want to have a very data focused and then evidence-based practice. I want to practice the sport of motorcycling from first and foremost from an evidence-based format
Mm-hmm.
and philosophy. And then maybe on top of that, I can editorialize a little bit. And the groups and the community for me was first and foremost the entry point because the sport of motorcycling. So maybe here's a little bit of philosophy of our business, and then I'll hit those other things.
Yeah.
I see myself as a scoutmaster to a bunch of semi-professional degenerates and part-time criminals. Look,
A little bit of everything.
we ride dirt bikes and motorcycles because we are not right. We are defective. We are broken in some profound ways. We are emotionally unable to operate in a modern environment. We are in the wrong generation. People who ride dirt bikes really would have been better suited to have been born 150 years ago as cattle ranchers and miners and prospectors and outlaws, desperados, train robbers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We are those people, and we just happen to be here in the now, and we're trying our level best to function and adapt to a fluorescent lit world that requires us to, sit in chairs and mind our manners and go to meetings. And I can tell you that almost to a rider, we are not created and designed. We don't have the DNA for that.
Yeah.
And so motorcycling for me represents the ability, it's the resource, it's the tool, it's the outlet that I can take all of the disease of modernity,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can deploy it in the most suitable way that it pushes all my buttons. It gets my adrenaline up, my dopamine goes up, all of my feel-good hormones. I'm activated within the tribe of the brothers that I ride with. We're really appealing to our tribal, internal, primitive instincts.
Mm-hmm.
And it is absolutely the literal vehicle, but the metaphorical vehicle that allows me to not commit all the crimes and debauchery that I probably am very inclined to do. I'm not on the front page of the newspaper in a really negative way because of motorcycling and dirt biking. And for me, it's a spiritual outlet. It pushes all my buttons.
Yeah.
So because it's such a high value resource for me, for my mental health and for all those things I just described, I know that I am not unique at all, that we are all sort of in that same family of degenerates. So I see myself a little bit like as the scoutmaster. I am a scoutmaster and have been in Boy Scouts for many, many years. And I see myself, the role I think I play a little bit is as a scoutmaster to a bunch of these weirdo dirt bike motorcycle riders. And because of that, I have some ability to communicate. I have some ability to transmit information and knowledge. I feel like education is a big, big, big part of what TacoMoto is about.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to give that away for free. I don't want to paywall any of this. You don't have to buy anything from us to get access to us. We never ask, if you call us or email us, we never ask, did you get your part from us? Gatekeep. We're only going to talk to you or help you if you got it from us.
Yeah.
There are other shops that do that. We do not. We are 100% open. I want to give away every bit of knowledge and information. I would love for you to buy a part from us to help support our mission, but you don't have to buy anything from us. And so I really want to be free, generous, and open with all the education and resources that we have. And I will tell people that I see myself personally as your motorcycles therapist. So just one last thought about, the connection that dirt biking has for me anyway, as a resource and outlet for all my destructive internal energy that I have. I know that I am not unique, like I just described. We're all kind of this way. And I don't want to be your therapist. I can't help the demons that are in your head. They scream too loud for me to be able to help.
That's a whole nother.
That's a whole other thing. But I know that your motorcycle is a great therapist, and I can be your motorcycle's therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel and internalize a deep responsibility to help the riders, the riding community, get on their bike, stay on their bike, and then go and experience nature and fellowship and all of those things that really sort of help heal the inner, turmoil and the demons. The motorcycle can do that. And I want to be able to do everything I can to make sure that, the homies can go out there and get on their bike and it works and it performs and it does the things they want to do and they enhance it the way they want to. And so that's a mission. Like I take that, for me, it's an actual mission and an actual purpose. So our business is built around a philosophy. Like we didn't start TacoMoto to be in business and to make money and to have, I'm not saving for a helicopter and a beach house. I have no financial if my wife was here, she would smack me. She wants us to have more of a financial, and I think we do need to do that. Like we're maturing as a business and we need to be more business focused and business minded.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am not motivated. That's not my personal agenda or motivation. Yeah. I don't even know what I don't know our numbers. I don't pay attention. I don't really care what they are. Mm-hmm. We eat, we pay our employees, we pay our bills. And to me, that's good enough. Mm-hmm. Because like I said, I've built our business around a philosophy, and then the business serves the philosophy. And I never want to lose sight of like our core focus and mission. So fuel pumps are a particular type of product that is a failure point. We started we have a one Facebook group now, 2, and then our YouTube presence. Mm-hmm. And I really pay a lot of attention to what's happening in the community, because that Facebook group in particular allows us to see in real time what riders are experiencing. We focus on Austrian bikes, the mm-hmm. KTM, gas, Husqvarna bikes. And so that group is focused on that platform. And I can see in real time what riders are experiencing by way of troubles, problems, whatever their complaints are. And I can see immediately, up to the minute, to the day, what riders are not happy with, what they want to change. And so when I saw that fuel pumps were an issue, and I've had personal bikes that have had fuel pump issues, mm-hmm. then I put out a call to the group and said, if you had a bike that had fuel pump failure, I'd like to get that fuel pump. And I would send a ship tag. And then I ended up with a box of like 30 fuel pumps, bad fuel pumps from crowdsourced. Mm-hmm. And then I cut them open and started to figure out, well, why did these fail? And I just had bins. Okay, this bin is for that failure mode and failure mode, failure mode. And so I was able to, through data, determine with evidence what it was that was causing these pumps to fail. With that information, I went out to pump manufacturers, found one based in the United States, and said, this is the pump and these are the specs. I wrote up a spec sheet and talked about it with them. And then they said, okay, well, we understand what the modes are, these failure points. And so they went about and designed a pump based on all of that, and then presented it to us. And then we started doing testing, and we call it the 3,000-hour fuel pump, mm-hmm. because for us, reliability and durability is paramount. Cost is obviously going to be a factor at some point, but I want to make decisions based on performance and reliability first and foremost above all else. Yeah. We'll figure out costs later. It'll cost what it'll cost. And so that's the origin story of the fuel pump. And then they lab tested 6 units in heated gas at pressure, at voltage for 3,000 hours. And when they tore those down, there was still service life left in them. Okay. But we just capped it like, okay, 3,000 hours. And so those pumps are named that because they were actually tested to 3,000 hours. And we've got a couple thousand. I was just thinking about this the other day. We have a couple thousand of them out there, and I've yet to have a confirmed failure of those pumps. We have not had a proven failure of the pump. Now, we've had bikes with those pumps that had fuel system problems, and I've had those riders send in their entire pump assembly. Mm-hmm. And then in every instance, it's been a hose or a regulator or something ancillary in the unit But the motor, the
Yeah.
pump motor, I have yet to have a single verified. It'll happen.
Yeah. At some point, right?
It'll happen.
Yeah.
But I'm super stoked to be able to say that we've had 0 valid failures. So our focus, I'm just sort of laying it all out there. Like, we have philosophies, we have agendas, and they are to serve the community with resources, information, knowledge for free, and then to serve the community with the best, the ultimate best product. That when we put out a thing, we want it to be the best, or we skip it, or we're still working on it, or we just haven't come out with it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It hasn't. It's in the verification process, and it may not make it out. Which I think that's good.
Yeah. So here's a quick example of a product that has taken a long time. So the new generation KTM bikes have the new center mount, high mount fuel pump unit.
Yeah.
So we've known about that since the 22 and a half competition bikes got that fuel pump, the factory edition bike. So we've known about that pump motor unit for a long time. We have a single stage snorkel unit and we have a double stage, so single hose and a double hose, and yet they're not out on market. They're working, they're in our bikes. I have such a high standard. I'm not going to release a half-assed version of anything.
Yeah.
And until I feel like it is fully realized, I'm not going to put it out there. And so it's taken a long time, and people email us all the time. Where's the pump? Where's the pump? It exists. It works. I'm using them. They're out there. We have them out there, but I'm not going to put it out there until I know that it's absolutely right. I don't want recalls. I don't want defects. I don't want people getting stranded in Baja, Mexico with any of our products. So if the time it takes is what it takes.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, to that point, very specifically the stranded part. There's, with bikes becoming the technological, it's a dirt bike, 2 wheels, a motor. It used to be just air, what was it? Fuel, spark, and oil, and you were good to go.
Okay.
But now you got high pressure fuel injection systems with return lines, with regulators on board. You've got, ECUs now. You've got all of these things. So any one of those new additions to what used to be a bike with 5 wires on it is now, multiple wires.
Yeah.
It's a pain point. And I think what we'll do is we'll do another episode where we'll talk, we'll invite everybody back to do another episode. We'll talk more about bikes and what's going on there. But, it's cool to see how this, the story begins and how it goes all the way from where the origins of TacoMoto was to hitting the ground running to crowdsourcing, community, information, and then all the way back out to this is how we develop a product based on what the community does and what it's said in the community, how it gets tested, depending on them, and seeking that help. Like that's just, to me, is badass. Like that to me is the business model, right? Because for a lot of people, and it's funny, I talk about this with other people in other industries and stuff like that, and it's been this thing that was taught to me a long time ago. People buy from people. Marketing isn't, if you go to marketing, you go to any of these things, and we all know it. You see a commercial, you walk into a dealership, a car lot, right? Or any of these places. A lot of these places, it's just like this regurgitated, nothing personal, just like right into the point, what are you here? How can I help you?
Always be closing.
ABC, always be closing. And as people now, we pick up on it like that. And we understand that. And so that's why I tell, I work as a service advisor, and I tell these guys, the same thing. It's like, dude, people buy from people. So, just treat people the way you want to be treated. It sounds cliche-ish, but, when you get to the point, and I'm sure you have customers like this already, is, hey, the bike's coming in. Okay, what does it need? This, and this. Okay, just call me when it's done. They don't ask questions. They don't ask about price. They don't ask about what you're going to do. They don't ask about a detailed list. They don't ask anything. They know that I made the call, the bike's coming in, I'm going to get a call, the bike is done. And they're, and then send me the bill. So I don't know. I think that is a really, really good thing you've done. 5 years already for the company?
Yeah, we're 5 years in. So to your point, I love that. When you transact, you're committing to a relationship. There's a relationship on the customer side, a relationship on our side. We want to maintain a relationship and have an open. So here's a couple of data points. We have our YouTube channel. I have deleted comments but it's probably been 2 or 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly small number. And I think the number of comments that we've deleted have been people who were drunk commenting. You know the type, okay? Ridiculous, okay?
You look at the post time and you go, yeah, that was not done.
Yeah. So it wasn't because of substance or criticism. I've never deleted a critical. I'm happy to receive critical feedback. It makes us better.
Yeah.
I don't shy away from someone's criticism. I welcome, educate me, teach me, train me. If you happen to have a position on anything, send us an email. I read it. I welcome it. So I've never deleted a critical comment. I've deleted ones that were like over the line in terms of scope and, attitude and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I leave all the comments up. And then on our Facebook group, I want to be incredibly transparent. And so maybe some businesses would never allow themselves to be that open and transparent with the community, because if something goes sideways, it's going to be very embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel embarrassment. I'm not embarrassed. And so like if there's feedback, like if we put a product out and then there's some glitch with it, I have exposed ourselves intentionally to be able to receive that feedback and then have other people see it. So like if I was a jerk or shady or any of that,
Yeah.
I've set up a terrible business model because I've exposed ourselves to the direct feedback from our audience and from our customer base.
Mm-hmm.
This is like, I've done something that is incredibly risky. I've had people tell me this.
Mm-hmm.
What we've set up is this hugely transparent, but then hugely risky model.
Mm-hmm.
But that's great because it keeps me sharp and it
Mm-hmm.
keeps me accountable, and it holds me to a high standard. And I'm the sort of person, I'm lazy. I'm inherently, I'm a little bit shady. Like I said, 100 years ago, I would be a train robber. I would be a bandit. I'd be a horse rustler. Like I'm wired to do that.
Yeah.
So to work against my natural tendencies, I have to have this level of transparency because it keeps me very ethical, very honest. And that's what I have to do for myself. I know that about me. And it also happens to work with the community that resonates. So I think we do not come across as shady. We don't come across as any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And people like that. Maybe people like our vibe. We're sort of like a surf, BMX, skateboard sort of vibe culture, because we come from that. And we operate very transparently, and we're not a business. I guess we're a business, but we're not a business.
Mm-hmm.
We're a philosophy about dirt biking and adventure and recreation and using outdoor sports for mental health.
Yeah.
That's our purpose. It happens to require a business to fund that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're first that concept, and then the business is attached to that secondarily.
Yeah.
That's our model. For right or wrong, good or bad, that's what we decided to do. And maybe it is working because we are growing year over year. I know this about our numbers. We've never had a down year. Year over year, we're growing. And then the feedback I get from the community seems to validate what we're doing.
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, that's putting that philosophy first, that community first. And without it, like the now definition is exactly that, is your community, the community of the motos, the guys that have been buying from you. They're buying from you. They're not buying from TacoMoto, even though that's the name on the building, that's the name on the door, that's the name on the checks, that's just a piece of paper with the name on it. And the idea behind it, the culture, the vibe, as you mentioned, and all of that is you and your team. I mean, not to discourage, it's
100% our people.
It's the person, and I think that's huge. And so we'll close this episode, and I think this might be a little bit longer of a question, but I think, where do you see this industry, the moto industry, going the next couple of years, maybe the next 10 years?
I am not the person to ask because I am not a business person, and I don't, I pay attention to what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I operate at a very, very micro level, not so much a macro level. And so looking broadly, I know that we're coming off of the COVID bump, which was crazy because everybody sold more equipment and more parts than anybody had ever had in the history of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's a lot of contraction. interest rates have been high, and so money hasn't been cheap, and people have not been able to run out and buy the side-by-sides and power sports equipment like they did during the cheap money era. Taste maybe changing and evolving. You see there's an age up in the motorcycle community in terms of the ridership. So there are a couple of things I think are in play. First of all, we're an aging group. We're also a very specific demographic, and then motorcycling has a high barrier of entry. That is to say, it's very challenging for somebody who's never been around people who own dirt bikes. You may not have to have it in your family, but if you had friends or relatives who had dirt bikes and invited you on dirt bike trips, that's an entrance point. But if you never had that, there's a high barrier of entry to just go in to dirt biking. Let's say you're a mountain biker and then something about dirt biking attracts you and you want to sort of like get into it. We don't do ourselves any favors by having like we put up, I think, culturally, dirt bikers generally put off how do I want to say this? I'm going to offend some of us. I'm guilty of it too, but I think we have not done ourselves any favors by making this an exclusive. First of all, it's male. Here's what it is. It's older white men ride dirt bikes, and our sport is sort of gate kept by those guys. And that's me too. So I point the finger at myself. We have done a bad job of marketing to the next generation of riders. And I think the next generation of riders doesn't look like, well, it can't look like a 55-year-old white guy. It's not going to be. But what if it looked like an 18-year-old with a nose ring and a mohawk? Why couldn't it look like that? Why can't the next generation of dirt bikers look like, maybe it's going to look like the gamer kids. So this is a tangent. I'm sorry I'm making the show go long.
No.
I'm sorry you have to listen to this. But here's a quick thought about the next generation of dirt bikers. In Las Vegas, we have the AIM Power Sports Show, the AIM show. Okay, so I go to that every year because it's in my backyard. Why wouldn't I? A couple of years ago, at the same time at the Las Vegas Convention Center, there was the Comic-Con. I don't even know if this was right. Comic-Con. I'm just saying words that I think I've heard. The comic book convention where I say kids, but it's not always kids. There's people our age that do this, but like role playing. And so there was a line of hundreds, thousands of people that were going into the convention center for their convention, the comic. But again, I'm probably doing a bad job of explaining what that convention was, but you understand. I think you get the gist.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so in that group of people, there were people dressed in Darth Vader costumes, and they had all those role-playing and video game costumes. It was a whole crazy rainbow of looks and homemade costume effects and all of that. It was quite remarkable. And I stood on the ramp of the show looking down on this long line of people, and I had this realization that they're us. It was this weird twisted thought. We're them. Because they're in a culture and a community that supports and rewards like behavior and attitudes. And so what are some of the touchstones that are the same, the parallels? Those are people who are very much into their activity. They're very much into their dress and appearance, their kit, their tech, their equipment. They bring into their sport what we bring into our sport. We wear costumes, we wear certain gear, clothes. We obsess and overthink the minutia of if I put this and this and modify that and I'll change that, and you get it. You make your own 3D motorcycle parts. Okay?
100%.
Okay.
That one. Yeah.
You could spend hours on the computer designing and refining a design of a thing to make a thing, to change a thing. Okay. So we're the same. And they're chasing adrenaline and community. It's just the same. We are the same people. So as much as it is weird to say that dirt bikers and role play kids and enthusiasts, we're the same people doing the same things with the same objectives. So I have this weird thought. What if the next generation of dirt bikers brought lightsabers and they wore Darth Vader costumes and they rode their bike like that. Now that's an exaggeration and unrealistic. But I think the point I'm trying to make is it's very possible and very likely that the next generation of dirt bikers don't look like the previous generation. And the previous generation, us together, we are gonna just be we're gonna probably bristle at that. We are not gonna want that sort of vibe coming in our community, and we just need to get over ourselves and stand down and let it become what it'll become. And so what's in store for what's the future of the sport? I hope it's a shakeup. I hope it's a recycle. I hope it's an upcycle of a whole new look and vibe. And I welcome it because we're going to retire out, we're going to age out, we're going to injure out, and something needs to replace it. And could it be that? I don't know. I'm just trying to be weird about it and think very outside of the box.
Yeah. And I mean, you're right. It has to evolve to a certain way. There's got to be some evolution to it, right? And just like you said, I mean, the jerseys and the graphics, back in the day, it was the purples and the pinks and bright colors. And then all of a sudden it was like, why are you wearing that? You look like a Power Ranger wearing that. And then all of a sudden you've got Yamaha and all their supercross bikes donning all the old school colors again, and so you're right. I think it's this circle. So I don't know. I'll leave it to you guys. What do you guys think for some ideas? Maybe where's the moto industry going? What would you guys like to see to help grow it? I mean, I think that's a valid question. I don't know what other question we can ask people to contribute on, but I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah. Tell me I'm wrong. I mean, I could be completely off base on this, but I would like to have a couple of experimental outreach rides. And if anybody out there thinks that some of this makes sense, I would like to do some outreaches and try to blend the communities together. And so maybe that looks like doing a couple of ride events where we could bring some slow seat height bikes, like a Honda 230 would be like the ultimate bike. Okay. What if we sourced 10 230s and then we wrapped them with graphics that would really resonate with that, community. So really cool anime type looking graphics. And then we had a photographer there and a drone. And then you could come out in your Batman costume and whatever and all of that, and then ride around and have pictures taken of you in your outfit on a dirt bike that looked really cool. That to me would be like this crazy experimental moment that I'm willing to try. And so I guess open-ended offer, if anybody wants to help realize that as an experiment. I think that the moto people could be very intrigued by the weirdness of that. And I think that that other community I think both would say this is a weird blend, but something about it could work and could click. I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah. I mean, I think eventually the most harebrained ideas, sometimes that's not the idea that goes to market, so to speak. Well, a little bit of a business term that goes to market. But it was the fact that idea encouraged this situation to happen. That's what made the impact. So it was the idea's fault. It wasn't the actual idea that changed the industry. It was that thing that came of it because of that idea. I think is important.
Okay.
So I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, so we'll end this episode there. Stay tuned. We got another episode coming. We're going to be talking a little. I think get a little more technical. Dig into some bike.
Okay, let's
talk some stuff. So we'll get into that one. So in the meantime, don't forget, guys, like, share, subscribe, both here on Chasing Waypoints. And then, Mike, you guys got your TacoMoto channel?
Yeah, so YouTube and Instagram and all the regular places. And if you're on Facebook, you could jump in any of in our group. I think it's called the EXCFE. I don't even know the name of it.
Anyway. It just went longer.
Yeah, it's out there. I think we're easy to find.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, thank you. You guys make sure you get that notification thing because we got another episode coming up here in a few. See ya.